Hey there poetry pals, welcome back to another video. This week I will be reviewing Leanne Moden's Get Over Yourself. Hi, my name's Josie Alford. I did 2 literature degrees so you don't have to, and I'm an award-winning literature reviewer. Leanne sent me her poetry collection to review, so let's get into it. The way this video is going to work is I'll talk about the book, Leanne and the publisher, and then I'll talk about the themes and the structure of the collection as a whole. Then I'll dive deeper into the poems themselves, talking about the forms. I'll tell you my favourite and my least favourite poem. Then we will zoom back out and I will talk about the reading experience and how I recommend you set yourself up to read this book. But before we go any further, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications and comment down below what brought you here. The engagement really helps small creators like me get found. And while we're on the subject, why don't you follow me on social media? I am Josie Alford Poet on all the things. You can support the channel with your money by buying me a coffee and joining me on Patreon. The links to do both are in the descriptions down below. So, the blurb. Get Over Yourself is a collection about transformation and self-acceptance, grief and sex, rebellion and conformity, belonging and self-discovery. Using humour, spoken word and storytelling, these poems take readers from the political to the intensely personal and back again. The collection will speak to anyone who has ever been through the painful process of growing up. Leanne Moden is a poet, a performer and educator, originally from Norfolk. An award-winning writer, slam-winning performer and fledgling theatre maker, Leanne runs the Paper Cranes Poets Collective in Beeston and is a founding member of 28 Sonnets Later. She lives in Nottingham with her partner and their cat, Brambles. Excellent bio. The book was published by Burning Eye Books in 2020. Now, 2020 was a tough year for publishing books, so if you're ever umming and ahhing about buying a book, if it's published by an indie press in 2020, buy it. So, the collection itself is 20 poems and 45 pages long. It is available to buy from Leanne's website for $8.99, link in the description. Super cool fact, you can also buy an audio download for $4.99. I really like the idea of this, especially for spoken word poets. So, let's talk about the collection as a whole. This collection is not very long, but the structuring is perfection. We start with the opening poem called Night Climbing. The opening lines are, "Take my hand and we'll rise above all this." It's about 2 teenagers who climb up onto the town's rooftops to escape from their everyday lives. I wrote the note, "This poem is all I ever wanted to hear when I was 15, a misfit's dream." This poem sets the tone for the whole collection. We are looking at adolescence, being from a working class town, not fitting in and wanting to escape. The rest of the first half expands on those themes in various ways, as well as exploring being part of the emo, rocker, goth counterculture in a small town, hence all of this. Halfway through the collection, we hit Tuesday evening 10:46, where the collection takes an emotionally dark and fearful turn. And the next few poems explore that dark space with themes of violence, mental health and loneliness. Trigger warning for self-harm and eating disorders too. When then that grief and sadness turns into anger and political poems about capitalism and the patriarchy, before ending on some gorgeous poems on self-discovery and acceptance. It's like going through puberty. And it's really hard with so few poems to create such an emotional journey. In my last video on how to edit a poetry collection, I cited this book as a cracking example of an emotional thematic journey. In the comments, Leanne told me that she had worked really hard on the structure, and let me tell you, the hard work pays off, gal. I love the fact that we end in a good place full of hope too. Let's get into the poems themselves. Leanne is a very technical writer. Many of her poems are written in some sort of form. We have a sonnet, We have regular rhyme schemes, as well as some poems with strict line length and rhythm. Her use of rhyme is excellent. She uses multi-syllabic rhymes throughout the collection, and it is done in a way that contributes to and doesn't distract from the meaning of the contents of the poem, apart from when it's meant to. What do I mean by that? Well, in her poem Small Town Blues, Whiz Beach 2002, she writes some lines that crack me up. Our chief exports are vegetables and rampant xenophobia, declining manufacturing and civic-led myopia. We've only got one Catholic church, so I guess we could be popier. Shut up. So funny. I love it when comedic poems use the form or rhyme of the poem as part of the punchline. Popier. Excellent. Alongside the poems with the stricter forms, Leanne also has these excellent free-verse poems that lose none of the conciseness. So, let's talk about my least favourite poem. We'll end on my favourite, shall we? My least favourite poem is Everything's Fine. It's a poem where the speaker introduces us to the "everything's fine" alarm. The alarm is there so we know that everything is fine. The speaker is frequently interrupted by the alarm and alludes to certain details such as rioting and hordes of the undead that implies that maybe everything is not so fine. But the speaker is trying to convince us anyway. To be clear, this is not a bad poem, it's just that the other poems are stronger and I have to pick one. There are two reasons why this is my least favourite poem. Number one, I think the poem would work better as a performance than it does on the page. Whilst we have the interesting layout of having the "everything's fine" alarm right aligned, I am not sure that enough was done to convey the meaning and irony in this piece on the page. Number two, I liked the concept, but I think we could have taken it further. I think that it takes a while to get going, which we could cut down and then really go in on the bits where it gets ridiculous. So, on to my favourite poem. This one was really hard to pick, so in fact I picked two. One for my inner teenager and one for Today Josie. First of all, honourable mention to On Becoming, with the repeating line, "Today I am black lipstick," which inspired this. I am wearing the darkest lipstick I could find. This is a super cute poem about identity and growing up and not being too sure. But my first favourite poem, the favourite of inner teenager Josie, is Guidelines. Reasons why I like it. Number one, vibes. I have been on these nights out and found belonging with these people, and it made my soul happy to have these moments preserved in a poem. Two, the use of repetition is masterful. Each of the first three stanzas mirror each other in form, from starting out with the repetition of "come out tonight" in the first line, to the fact that the first word of the seventh line of each stanza starts with words that rhyme with each other: wear, tear, and share. Gorgeous. My favourite line is, "Don't worry about what you are wearing, as long as what you are wearing is black." I hope my busted t-shirt isn't too uncool for this. Okay, and my other favourite poem, Today Josie's favourite, is Starstruck. It is made up of 8-line stanzas where every other line rhymes, kind of similar to a ballad. It is a love poem that intertwines images of love and space. It is the perfect wedding poem. In fact, I'm willing to bet a tenner that this poem was a commission for someone's wedding. I love it. It makes me happy cry. If I could get married again, I would choose this poem as a reading. My favourite lines are, "You're celestial perfection, and to me you're luminous. If Van Gogh was alive, he'd want to paint the two of us." Oh, my heart. My black heart. So for each of my reviews, I like to give recommendations on how you should approach reading this book. So this book can definitely be read in one go. It is only 20 poems. If you're watching this and you are a teenager, I recommend taking this to your favourite spot. This could be a coffee shop, a park, or the hill overlooking your small hometown, and I recommend packing a drink and a snack that brings you joy. If you are like me and your teenage years are a little further behind you, Go to the place that reminds you of being a teenager and bring your favourite drinks. My ideal reading spot for this would be the Boston Tea Party in Exeter with a gingerbread latte, or a bench in Northern Hay Park with a Fanta fruit twist and a pack of cigarettes. Sorry, Mum. I recommend buying the audio download and reading along with Leanne. It makes for an awesome reading experience. But if that is not your bag, I also found this playlist of emo, pop, punk, piano, instrumental covers, which would make the perfect soundtrack to your reading time. I'll put a link to the soundtrack in the description. So in conclusion, I give this book 4.5 stars and I totally recommend it. If you want to buy it, the link is in the description. And if you don't have the money, request it at your local library. That still means Leanne makes money, you know that, right? And if I know you personally, send me a message and you can borrow mine. I totally recommend buying the audio download too. So, have you read it? What did you think? And if you haven't read it, would you read it based on my recommendations? So that's it for this week's video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. The engagement really helps small creators like me get found. And you can support the channel by buying me a coffee or joining me on Patreon. The links to do both are in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next week. Bye!